PFT PM, Monday, March 10, first day of free agency. A lot of things happening. We're going to do these all week long as needed, maybe at the end of the day to go over some of the big news and stories on which I might have a little bit of insight. We're not going to try to do everything, just the big things plus anything that might happen while I'm sitting here for the next however long I'll be sitting here. And as I sit here, I'm wearing prototype, new merch. They sent me a whole box, and all of these items will fit into the category of closest and cleanest, which, as you know, is how I make my wardrobe choices every morning. I've had this one on all day. It's been a busy day. No wardrobe changes today for me. I'm kind of partial to the old PFT logo. This is the new PFT logo that you'll see on Peacock and elsewhere. If you're watching on YouTube, first of all, thank you. Second of all, drop a comment as to whether you prefer the new or the old. I'm kind of warming up to the new just because I'm seeing it on items, but I still like the old PFT logo. Maybe we'll make both available, like new Coke and old Coke. Do they still have new Coke, or did it ever just become Coke again? Hopefully this experiment goes better than the failed experiment from 1985 of the new Coke formula, which resulted in classic Coke and new Coke and old Coke and Coke whatever. All right, let's start with Aaron Rodgers. Because as of right now, here's my understanding of what's going on. He wants to play for the Steelers. He probably will end up in Pittsburgh. The Giants could still snatch him by making the kind of financial offer that isn't in the same ballpark as where the Steelers are. Now, I don't know where the Steelers are going to be. Earlier today, we had a semi-educated guess of 2 years, $90 million, with $40 million fully guaranteed at signing. Sounds like a lot, but pull up the contracts, pull up the average annual value of some of the highest paid quarterbacks and ask yourselves, do they compare to Aaron Rodgers right now? And I know everybody's down on Aaron Rodgers as a player. Come on, he's still got gas in the tank. He still plays well when healthy. He's got to stay within his physical abilities as it relates to movement because he could get himself injured again. He's got to play like he did that year that he had a calf injury and he was just pocket passer, firing lasers all over the place. He could still play at a high level. And let's face it, ever since we got to the point where Ben Roethlisberger's career started to fizzle out, and there was at least 1 year where the Steelers were hoping he didn't come back and he surprised them by taking their offer on a reduced contract. Since that point, Steelers haven't had great quarterback play, but they still contend. Rodgers will make them better. Rodgers will take a team, or at least should take a team, that perennially is on the playoff bubble, no losing season since Mike Tomlin took over, if you haven't heard, and make it a team that maybe can win a playoff game. This will be the 9th year since the Steelers last won a playoff game. 10th season, if we start with 2016 and run it through 2025. They won a division round game at Kansas City. That's it. Haven't won a postseason game since then. And when you consider the DK Metcalf move, $33 million a year in new money for a guy who's never played for the team before, they're changing. And adding Aaron Rodgers would be a significant development as Pittsburgh seems to be trying to get to the playoffs and win at least one game when they get there. But if the Giants blow him away, maybe he would be inclined to accept the fact that it won't be as easy in New York. It won't be much easier than it's been the past couple of years in New York. The Giants have a lot of needs that one guy will not be able to fix. And the question is, does he get 2 years? I think he's hoping for 2 more years. In Pittsburgh, far more likely. In New York, if it doesn't turn around quickly, it could be just like what he experienced in New York this year, just with the other team in the building. New coach, new GM, new quarterback. Pittsburgh, greater chance of getting both of those years. We'll see how it plays out. But that one has become more relevant as this day has unfolded. The first big quarterback domino to fall was, as seemed obvious from the moment the Seahawks traded Geno Smith to the Raiders on Friday, Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. Now, I can't say how I had a pretty good idea this was happening, but I had a pretty good idea this was happening, and I said so on Friday night, and we talked about it on Monday's PFT Live. No way John Schneider, the GM of the Seahawks, lets Smith go without having a viable alternative in place. And you've seen how quickly some of these deals have gotten done. And every once in a while, the people on TV will almost let it slip that the conversations were happening before noon Eastern today, which of course makes it tampering, but it's okay. We all know 99.9% of the time, the NFL doesn't care about tampering. Just every once in a while, they'll hammer somebody, and usually then it's when the evidence is blatant and overwhelming that tampering happened. Last time we saw it was a few years ago with the Dolphins. After multiple years of tampering with Tom Brady and then adding the twist of tampering with Sean Payton, they got hammered. For the most part, this stuff happens, and the NFL isn't going to start trying to go down the rabbit hole because, frankly, there's too many rabbits down there. So, Sam Darnold, I believe, and the Seahawks were talking before this weekend, possibly before the Geno Smith trade was done. And now it's a 3-year, $100.5 million deal, $33.5 million per year. And that just highlights the fact that Geno wanted more than 40. The Seahawks wanted to stay closer to 30. And here they are with Sam Darnold at $33.5 million per year. We'll see what the full structure is. Because remember, when Geno Smith did his contract a couple of years ago in Seattle, it was 3 years, but it was structured as a year-to-year proposition. If the first 2 years are fully guaranteed, then it's not. But the way it worked with Geno's deal, the Seahawks had a window after every season to pull the plug if they wanted to. We'll see what it looks like for Darnold. And it definitely entails risk for both sides. Can Darnold replicate what he did in Minnesota, in Seattle? Can the Seahawks get him to play like he did in Minnesota? Or will it be reversion to what we saw with the Jets? And I think the fact that the Seahawks have had multiple years of experience with a failed former Jets rookie quarterback in Geno Smith, they're comfortable with a failed former Jets rookie quarterback in Sam Darnold, especially since we saw him play at a high level last year. And the Seahawks saw him play at a very high level, week 16, with that 3-touchdown game, including the 39-yarder that won the game to Justin Jefferson. When Darnold, and I know the stats will say he's not so great when he's under pressure. He was under pressure on that play. He flew up in the pocket, got rid of the ball, and won the game. When you see that happen in your building from a road team, when road teams traditionally have a hard time winning there, although that worm has turned in recent years, when you see it happen in your building, that makes you confident you can replicate that if he's a member of your team. So Darnold was the big one. And most people were expecting he was going to end up in Seattle, but until it was announced, it wasn't official. And it's still not officially official until Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. In theory, Darnold could change his mind. We've seen it happen before. It doesn't happen often. It creates all sorts of issues between agents and teams and coaches and GMs. It's not a good look when it happens, but it's never done until it's done. The next domino that fell on the quarterback front, and this is the one that clears the path for Aaron Rodgers to go to Pittsburgh. It's Justin Fields going to the Jets, Rodgers' old team, for 2 years, $40 million. Now think about that. 2 years, $40 million, $20 million a year for a veteran starting quarterback. I don't think there's another veteran starting quarterback that's going to be making that little. And it screams out potential placeholder. I don't know who the Jets would draft. I don't know if they're even thinking to draft anybody, but there's always a veteran quarterback every year who is the starter for about 6 weeks. And then in comes a rookie, and it's all thrown into flux and chaos. And it happened for Fields when he was drafted by the Bears in 2021. March of that year, they signed Andy Dalton. They tweeted in late March, QB1 with Dalton. And then they drafted Justin Fields, and Dalton wasn't QB1 for very long. But 2 years, $40 million, that tells me a couple of things. Number one, it was better than what the Steelers were offering. And number two, there's nothing else out there for Justin Fields. And it makes sense. He's had a mixed bag. Great runner, dangerous runner. Passer, he hasn't quite developed yet. That'll be the challenge for the Jets to get more out of him. And the challenge for Fields and for the Jets, how will they deal with the growing pains that will cause the fans to clamor for the backup, whoever the backup is? Because that's kind of how it goes for the Jets. They always love the backup. Get the backup in the game. Let's see what the backup can do. The backup plays well. They love the backup. Then the backup fizzles. Get rid of the backup. Put somebody else in. So Fields is stepping into that for 2 years, $40 million. This is really his last chance. And my guess is on a 2-year deal, it's a 1-year deal if they really decide after this year it just isn't working. And again, don't rule out the Jets finding a way to add a young quarterback who would work behind Fields for a year or maybe not even a full year. And we'll see where it goes from there. Another move today that had nothing to do with free agency, but everything to do with the looming start of the new league year when trades can happen. Out of the blue, unexpected, Laramie Tunsil, veteran left tackle, Houston Texans, traded to the Washington Commanders for a package of picks. Not nearly as impressive a package of picks as the Texans gave up in 2020 to get him, actually 2019, to get him from the Miami Dolphins. Remember, he was a first-round pick. 2016 slid down the board when that gas mask bong photo showed up on social media just as the draft was beginning. He became a great left tackle in the NFL. He got paid by the Texans, but the Texans decided it was time to move on. And who knows? Maybe the Texans are wrong. Maybe the Commanders are right. Maybe he just needed to change of scenery to access a higher level of performance. Last year wasn't great for Tunsil, but the Commanders surely know that. They've monitored all their options. They think they'll be better on the offensive line, and they're going to pay him more than $20 million this year, just about $21 million this year, and also next year if they keep him beyond this year. He might also want a new contract. We'll see how that plays out. But the Commanders doing what they have to do to add veteran talent. It's a second trade so far of significance. Deebo Samuel and now Laramie Tunsil as they try to close the gap with the Philadelphia Eagles. And we know the gap is a significant one as it all played out at the NFC Championship game this year. And that brings me to the Philadelphia Eagles. They re-signed linebacker Zach Bond last week, but they let defensive linemen Milton Williams and Josh Sweat get to free agency, and they were gobbled up right away. Milton Williams initially to the Panthers, but again, these aren't done until they're done. In came the Patriots and snatched Milton Williams away. More on the Patriots in a second. And then it was Josh Sweat, guy who could have been arguably the Super Bowl MVP, had 4.5 votes, finished second to Jalen Hurts. Josh Sweat goes to the Arizona Cardinals on a big money deal. And Sims mentioned on PFT Live today, it makes sense because Jonathan Gannon, the Cardinals coach, was in Philadelphia during Sweat's career. There's that familiarity. The idea, I know this guy, I know how he practices, I know how he plays, I know how he conducts himself, and the Cardinals make him a massive offer, and he takes it. And the Eagles knew what was going to happen. The Eagles know they can't pay everybody. They pay a lot of players, but you can't pay everybody market value, and this is what happens. When you win a Super Bowl, you encounter some roster difficulties as it relates to players having expiring contracts and other teams saying, let's go get this guy. He brings a Super Bowl ring to the locker room. He brings a championship pedigree. And also he brings a knowledge of the Cardinals defense and the kind of thing that can maybe help him push the Cardinals to the kind of performances we've seen from the Eagles defense. Now, the intriguing piece with the Philadelphia Eagles is cornerback Darius Slay. He hasn't been released yet. And when the news broke last week, it was reported accurately. The Eagles will be releasing him. There's no reason to think for now they won't be. However, they still hold his rights until they release him. So when the report emerged on Monday that Slay had agreed to terms with the Steelers, that was premature. They can't agree to terms with Slay. They can talk to him. Slay has permission to talk to other teams about a possible trade. See, here's what happens. When you give a guy permission to talk to other teams about a trade, there can be a companion conversation about what you would pay him if you don't have to trade. And that's where the wrench got thrown into the gears on this one. The word gets out that there's a deal, there can't be a deal. And now the Eagles are thinking, what can we get from the Steelers? Even if it's a 7th-round pick, it's something rather than letting Slay go. And if you cut him, you get no compensatory draft picks. It's only the guys who become free agents through the expiration of their contracts who make a team eligible for compensatory picks. So they're looking at nothing for Slay. Now they might be able to get something. We'll see how that plays out. But it's creating a ton of interest on both sides of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Is there a way Slay comes back? Is there a way the Eagles get value for Slay? Is there a way Slay ends up with the Pittsburgh Steelers? That's become, and today's been a great traffic day, as the first day of free agency always is. But once that one hit, that shot up to the top of the stack as the most trafficked and viewed story of the day. Even on a day, and I haven't mentioned this yet, even on a day when Twitter had a little problem. And it created problems for anybody who's trying to consume NFL news and post NFL news. Now, we went straight to Blue Sky and Threads. We have PFT, which people know the address to. You just come there, and we had all the moves there. But it was a little bit of a challenge to keep up with everything when Twitter was down. Twitter seems to be back up. So fingers crossed it'll stay up, because it makes it easier for everyone to consume and to generate NFL-related news if Twitter, despite its flaws, don't get me started, but when it's up, it's really all we have that has a massive platform. We got almost 2 million followers on Twitter, and we're up to maybe 27,000 on Blue Sky. We got a nice little bump today because people realized we were posting transaction after transaction after transaction with a story, with some analysis, with some loose ends tied up if need be. But we've been posting it all there and now on Twitter and on Threads. But the bottom line is just go to profootballtalk.com. It's been 16 years since we crashed out on the first day of free agency. And so far, so good, knock on wood, with more than 90 posts already today and significant traffic. Everything is working fine for now. One last note. The Patriots had $127.2 million in cap space, and they went drunken sailor on a sinking ship today. Good Lord. They have signed some guys. Mentioned Milton Williams earlier, snatched him away from the Carolina Panthers. They've also added Morgan Moses, Carlton Davis, Robert Spillane, and Harold Landry. Landry, I think, was yesterday because he'd been cut by the Tennessee Titans. But you've got Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf trying to make this team better. And these expenditures, they also traded Davin Godchaux today. But these expenditures are just another indictment of the latter years of the Bill Belichick regime in New England. And there were some dust-ups, if you will, last year with questions of whether or not the talent's really there. How much of it is Belichick's fault? How much of it is the new regime's fault? Every time an existing player would sign an extension, there'd be a temptation by the pro-Belichick crowd to thump their chest. Hey, if the cupboard is so bare, why are they extending the contracts of these players? But the reality is the Patriots haven't been good since Belichick left. Hell, they haven't been good since Tom Brady left. And now that they have a franchise quarterback in Drake May, and they believe in Drake May, and people around the league believe in Drake May, it's about building out the team around him and trying to return to contention in a division that, other than the Bills, there isn't a powerhouse team right now. Patriots have a chance to fill that void. Patriots have a chance to compete with the Buffalo Bills, although it won't be easy. The Bills have gone out and made some moves today. They're trying to get better. They paid Josh Allen. He's the highest paid player in NFL history, the reigning MVP. The Bills are going to be tough to deal with in the coming years, but the Patriots trying to get back to relevance, to get back to contending, to get back to the playoffs, to get back to winning a playoff game for the first time since they won Super Bowl 53. And that Super Bowl win is getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the rearview mirror. And look here, there is some news. While we've started recording this edition of PFT PM, the Browns have found their quarterback, or at least a quarterback, acquiring Kenny Pickett from the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. That's a quarterback the Browns drafted a couple of years ago. The Browns are also throwing in a 2025 fifth-round pick. And now the Browns have, back in the AFC North, Kenny Pickett. Nice little wrinkle for a couple of games this year when he'll be playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. He won his Super Bowl ring last year as Jalen Hurts' understudy. Now, at least for now, he'll be the guy to help turn the Cleveland offense around. Still a year left on his rookie contract at an affordable number. And that's one of the things we've been saying about the Browns. Whatever they do at quarterback, it's got to be affordable because they've got so many dollars and cap dollars tied up in Deshaun Watson's contract that so far has been, frankly, the single worst transaction in NFL history at any time when you consider how much they gave Watson and how much they gave up to get him. So Kenny Pickett, and maybe they'll make a move with a veteran. Maybe it'll be Pickett versus someone else. Compete and see who'll be QB1 for the Browns for 2025. The one thing we know, it won't be Deshaun Watson. You can put this episode of PFT PM in the rearview mirror until tomorrow morning when PFT Live returns. And I guess there's a chance something crazy is going to happen tonight, and I'll come back down here to the Bat Cave and do another video. But for now, here's the plan. As always, Tuesday morning, PFT Live, 7 to 9 Eastern on the various platforms where it's available. And then PFT PM, maybe later in the day, depending upon the moves, depending upon the news, depending upon the urgency, we may do it again. Thanks as always for a little bit of your time. See you tomorrow morning. And forget about the social media apps. Just go to profootballtalk.com. We've got everything you need. There's a free agency tab that has all the stories relevant to the transactions that have been made. Just scroll. You'll see all of them there. We'll keep it updated all night long into tomorrow. Thanks again. See you Tuesday morning. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.